So one of the important thing now is the client-side development. Okay, so which is actually getting pretty popular because of a lot of the things that we have in terms of the development model that Microsoft is bringing towards, whether it may be SharePoint Online, even SharePoint on-premises, building solutions using client-side development is very critical. And the first starting point towards the client-side development is learning jQuery. So that is one of the important thing that you guys needs to aware. So that's why we have this particular session. So where we're going to talk about some of the basics on how you can get started with. So I'll also show you like how you could customize the list form. Then at the end, so we have a program that I'm about to announce. So I'm going to talk about that because the thing with SharePoint or even with SharePoint Online is there are a lot of features coming up, and keeping up to date with those features are a quite difficult task. So we just have something called SharePoint Journey Club. So I'm going to talk at the end. Okay. But yeah, this is what I was talking about. So we'll discuss about this particular thing at the end. But you usually see that most of the times, I never seen a project where I don't customize a task form, whether it is a small project or even a big project that I have worked with. So most of the times we get common tasks like, okay, if I fill, for example, the issue status to some other value, then I have to pre-populate some of the drop-down values. Or I wanted to keep this assigned to someone else, to my manager or to someone else. So it's always like you might need to customize in one or the other way about all the list forms that we are going to work with. So this is one of the pretty common requirement that we get in case of SharePoint projects. But there are a lot more things that you could do with jQuery, but I'm going to focus on this particular thing. But before we get into how we could customize this form to this thing, where now you can see that the user experience in this particular form is much better, because now user can fill all the fields without using the scroll bar itself, which is a better experience in terms of how the user is going to use the application. And also always remember, whatever the technology that you are going to use, whether it is the client-side development or SharePoint, or may not be SharePoint or a different technology, providing end-user experience is very critical for a successful project. So you need to consider all those things. So in this case, with the fields just beside each other, the users will have less issue while entering the information, and they can submit it. But how we are going to do it, that's what we are going to see for next 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, so talking about jQuery, if you go to jQuery.com, that's the website, and they have this quote like, always write less and do more. That means using jQuery, you can write a few functions or call few functions, and you can perform a lot more operations. So it's basically a library using which you can perform a lot of operations. But if you see behind the scenes, it's completely JavaScript. So which means if you know basics of JavaScript, you will be able to understand the jQuery pretty well. I may not be able to cover everything about JavaScript basics and all those things, but what I'm going to give you is, in this particular session, I'm going to take you through how we could use that jQuery library and perform some of the operations, especially the one that we have discussed about customizing the list forms. But when it comes to JavaScript, it's like similar to any other programming language. You might have learned C, C++ during your college days or early in your career, which will have conditions, variables, and all those things, right? So it's going to be similar even in JavaScript, but a little bit different how we are going to use it. So we're going to see some of those things and how we are going to use using jQuery as well. And it's always important you get the foundation in any particular topic that you're going to work with. For example, if I know the basic thing or the fundamental thing that I'm going to use, then we will be able to understand that particular concept pretty well. But if you see this one, this has some dollar symbol and you have article, then hide. Okay, so even if you are coming here for the first time and looking at jQuery, so you don't have to worry about try to understanding all these things. The basic idea of jQuery is more about you're going to select a particular element. Let's say you have a list form, then the one that you have saw before. For example, let me go back here. So let's say this one. These are all different elements in your page. Okay. So in order to understand what is element, you should know the HTML part. Okay. So I'll come back to that. What is HTML? Out of this particular page, you need to know what are the things that you want to customize. So you need to select something from this particular page. Okay. Then once you select something, what you're going to do is you're going to do something. So in this case, what we are doing is we are trying to select all the elements which matches with particular class. So every element you can assign a class, and in this case it's an article. Then you are basically hiding that particular element on the page. Okay. So even if you see like 100 lines of code or even 1,000 lines of code project, almost everything will have similar kind of functionality. So whatever the code that you're going to see using jQuery, it is going to select something and it is going to do something. So we will see some of those examples where I'm going to show you which is going to use particularly this particular thing, nothing different in terms of jQuery. Okay. So I was talking about what is HTML. So HTML, for example, you have a blank text file, right? And you will have HTML tags. So what this HTML tags does is, let's say you put some text. Here I say that welcome to jQuery in SharePoint. But what I was doing here, I'm using this text called H1 between that I'm writing welcome to jQuery in SharePoint. So the HTML basically is going to give instruction to the browser. Okay, based on the tags that we have here, change the how this particular text will get displayed. So if you see this one, now you can see this is how that particular text is going to display. But if I change this HTML tags, then it's again going to give the instructions to your browser, say that, okay, you have to display this particular text in a different way. That's what the HTML is all about. Okay, so understanding HTML is also very, very important. For example, if I quickly go here, so this is a page, right? And if you look at all this page, if I just press F12 here and select any one of these elements, and if you look at all these elements, this is all HTML. So you can see basically different tags here. So I have H1. Now, if I change to H2, then you will see the difference as well. Okay. That's how basically based on the HTML code that you're going to have, it will give instruction to this particular browser saying that, okay, so you go ahead and show according to the tags that this is going to have. Okay. But the other thing which you need to know as well before learning jQuery is the CSS selectors. Understanding cascade style sheet selectors is also very, very important if you need to know jQuery. And three important things that you need to know in terms of CSS selectors are, you have something called name selector. That means we spoken about the elements, right? So we spoken about H1, H2, different kinds of elements. These are all name selectors. So I can apply a specific H1, H2 element, then apply those style sheets. So I can select those elements on the page. So we'll see these things in examples and how these things will look like. So if you see this, this is a H2 element, right? And which has a name for each and every tag, and whatever the content that is going to be inside will become red. That's what this particular example describes. So instead of H1, it can be other element also. It can be anchor tag. It can be other HTML tags that you want to apply. For example, a button, maybe hyperlink, maybe something else. So using CSS, you can select those elements and you can perform something. Okay, here it is pretty much similar. So this is how, let's say you have a my title, then it's going to show in this particular color if it is in H2 element. Okay. Now there are a few more selectors called ID selectors. So if you have seen, observed the before HTML that I have shown you on the page, I'll go back to there. Every HTML tag will have a specific ID. So let's say if you see here, I can have an ID called demo, and I'm going to represent, if I want to work with CSS, I'm going to use the pound symbol if I want to work with specific ID. So in this case, what I'm doing, I'm trying to get all elements with ID equal to demo. Then I'm applying the background color to blue. Then this is how the text will change. I'm going to quickly go back to the HTML page and show you how the IDs looks like. So I'll go back here and I'm going to select, for example, this particular title. So you can see here, I have a span element which is having the ID. So this is what I was talking about. And if I go here, I have H2 element which has ID. And whereas the class selector that I was talking about, so these are all the classes that each element will have. Okay. So you can use CSS selectors to perform different operations. Let's go back here. And the third one that we have is class selectors that I was just mentioning before. So here, every element can have a class. So let's say you apply for a particular design for your website. Then what you can do is, using that class, you can apply the styles. So in this case, if you see, for all the text that we have, the background color got changed to green. Okay. And this is other important thing that you guys need to understand, how we are going to use developer tools. So every time when I'm going to this particular jQuery, I'm pressing F12 here, and which is having different sections, for example, elements. So we're always looking at this particular element section. So if I use this particular arrow and hover it on this particular page, you can see that the HTML is keep on changing. You see this? And we are going to also use the console tab to test all our jQuery. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to use the console here to build specific functions. Then we will reuse that particular code while implementing the customizing the list forms, or if I want to perform something. So everything we will test it here. So getting hold of developer tools is very, very important when you are working with jQuery. Okay. So let's look at a few samples that we have here. I'm going to quickly go through them. So let's open this in Chrome. So what I have here is pretty much a basic HTML page. So I can actually go to view source and I can look at what exactly it has. So it has simple H1 element, okay, which is saying welcome to jQuery here, right? But if I go ahead and edit this, let's say for example, I'm going to change this to H2. Okay. Now see what is going to happen. Now I'm going to save this. You go back to the browser and I'm going to refresh this. Now you see the text that is being displayed will change because that HTML is giving instruction to this browser, display whatever inside the tag according to the specified tags mentioned here. Okay. So now let's go back to demo 2 that we have, and I'm going to run this. So here we have a lot more things. We have few more elements rather than a welcome to jQuery, where I have applied the background color. For the first one, I have red, and the second one and third and fourth has green. So how this was done basically is, so let's go to source again. So here if you see, I have different div elements, right? And everything says the same text, but it has a different IDs. So here I have demo, demo 1, demo 2, demo 3. But before that, I have CSS here, which is mystyle.css. So if I go here, this is what I was talking about. So if I see any element which has my class background color is green, then this is going to get applied for all the elements on this particular page. Okay, so the first one is, okay, now you might be thinking like this particular class is applied for all the elements, right? So it should ultimately show everything in green. But that is not actually happening here. If you see here, the first one becomes red. The reason is, in the second line, I have a demo element where I am overwriting the green with red color. Okay. So that's why the first element got the red color here. If you want to test it, what you can do is, you can always go to, let me open the demo folder here. I'll go to this style sheet, and you can always comment this and see how this works. So I can simply comment like that. Okay, now let's go back to the page and refresh this. Now you see that everything is green. So this particular style sheet here, this section is commented. Now all the elements I was able to select all the elements on the page. That's the important thing. Then I applied a color. So that is called class selectors. So I was able to use this class and I applied the background color. So you can do anything here. Probably you can apply a different color, or maybe you want to load an image. So you can do a lot more things with these CSS selectors. Okay, so I'm going to remove the comment here. Okay, and I'm going to refresh this back again. Now you can see the background color updated to the red now. Okay. So once you understand how these CSS selectors works and how you could work with different elements on the page. See, these are all different HTML tags, which has div and IDs and classes. Then working with jQuery will becomes much more easier. At the end of the day, whether you work with SharePoint or whether you work with any technology, this is all HTML. Okay, and the browser try to render this particular HTML depends on whatever the conditions that you're going to write using CSS or a jQuery that we are going to see. So if you have any questions on CSS selectors, yeah, you guys can put it in the Q&A section. You will be able to see that. So put those questions in Q&A if you have any questions. Okay, so so we just saw a quick demo already. Now, how are you going to get started with jQuery? That's an important thing, right? And again, learning jQuery is much more like you can you can get started with like very basic thing, and you can do a lot more things. I always get questions from a lot of folks where, okay, should I learn Angular? Should I learn Knockout? Should I learn React? But I would say, yeah, learning all those things is always great. But using jQuery itself, you can do a lot more things. So before you get into all those other things, I would emphasize more on learning jQuery and implementing solutions using jQuery. Srinivas has a question. Is it mandatory to have ID and class both for one element? No, it's not mandatory, Srinivas. If you look at the one that you saw even in the page here, okay, so if I go to the developer tools, and if I look at elements, I have few elements which doesn't have ID itself. For example, this div, it doesn't have any ID, so it's not mandatory. Those are all optional, so you can either have class or you can have either ID. So depends on how you are going to use, then you can control using that particular thing. So what are the ways to get started with jQuery? So the first thing I would do is, if I wanted to learn jQuery, I'm gonna go to jQuery.com. So this is the first thing that I'm gonna do. Okay. So once you go to the jQuery.com, okay, let's go there. And this is the site. Most of the people go there, and then what you can do is you can actually download a specific version of jQuery that you would like to use. So when you go here, you always get two options. One is production one, the other one is development version. But if you look at the size, okay, let me quickly download these two. Okay, and if you look at the difference between these two size, it is like 262 KB and this one is 85 KB. So when you load a particular page, now you are trying to load this jQuery.com, right? And when you try to load, all those files that you are rendering will have an impact. Okay, so you should always make sure the references that you are going to use will have less in size. That's why you have production one and you have uncompressed one. Okay, let's look at both of them using Notepad++. And again, this is the other thing. If you want to use jQuery and learn about jQuery, you don't have to use fancy tools. You can always get started with simple Notepad++, even Notepad also. So if you see this one has a lot of JavaScript written in it, but everything has a function and with proper comments. So you can basically go inside and read each line and understand what exactly it does. That's why it has size of like 10K, more than 10K, right? But let's go here and open the minified version. So you see this one here, it doesn't have any comments and all the spaces has been removed. Okay, so if you are working in production, don't use the developer or uncompressed version of jQuery. Always use the compressed one, so which will help you to load your page pretty faster. Because we all hate if we try to open a page that takes a lot of time, right? Okay, so once you download that, then you will be able to get started with jQuery pretty much. so you can reference that in anywhere that you want to work with. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back here to the slides, and once you download it, so you can add that to a particular page, or if you add that to a master page, okay, so you can always have those get applied to all those pages, but then you can actually apply it to the page layout as well. Okay, and there is one more thing which is important to understand when you are getting started with jQuery, which is document.ready, and there is a function, right? So then it says do something here. What is the importance of this particular thing? Basically what it does is, it whatever the code that you're going to write here, for example, I'm going to write so it's a code here, for example, where name equal to spj. Okay, so this particular code will not get execute until unless your browser or your page is loaded, all elements on your page is loaded. Always remember, the basic idea using jQuery is you need to select something and do something. But if I want to select something, first of all elements has to be loaded, right? So if those elements are not loaded, then there is no point of doing something, or I'll not be able to select those elements itself. So you always need to have, or as a way or workaround, or an option where you're not going to execute your code until unless all the elements on the page is loaded. I'm going to quickly show you this in action in a moment, so that you can actually understand the impact of document.ready. Okay. Before that, I'm going to just quickly go to question and answers. Does ID is important compared to the class? No, you can use any one of them. Depends on whatever the need that you're going to have. You can still keep both of them in same tag. So in the example that you saw just now, we have both of them, right? Then what happened, based on the sequence of execution, I have first class, then later I have overwritten with the ID. So whichever maybe the second one that you're going to apply, that will be taking over. So what is the difference between 3-point version and 2-point version and other jQuery versions? I think there are quite a lot of improvements that will be done over a previous version to the new versions, and there might be some of the functions that will get deprecated as well. So I would recommend pick the latest one, but you can always go and read within the jQuery site itself. You will be able to find out all of those information about what is deprecated, what is a new feature that is added. Okay, and also one more important thing I will look at in case of jQuery site is this particular thing, API documentation. So this is one of the key things that you need to understand. For example, if you see here, deprecated 3.0. So you will be able to find out what are the functions that will get deprecated in that particular version. Okay, so you need to understand these things. So go to this API documentation and then look at different things that got deprecated. But again, new version will always have new features that will be added. So again, the key would be going to this jQuery.com and looking at this API documentation to understand more about jQuery. Is it better to use CDN path? It depends, but it always better to use CDN because it provides the caching features. So it's already cached, so that the performance will be much faster. But some of the projects, your client may not agree for the CDN path. So in those cases, the better option would be you upload that to one of the site assets or the style library within the same site collection, then refer those things. So you can go with that approach. But if your client agree with CDN path, yeah, you can always use that, which will always improve the performance of your SharePoint site or any site for that matter. But yeah, if you have any questions, yeah, keep putting it in the QA section. I'm gonna look at those questions. Okay, so let's look at this demo 3. Here, what I have done was I have added simple script, okay, which is JQuery reference. You see that I have added 3.2.1. Then I have my own script, which is myscript.js. I'm going to quickly run this. Then I'm going to show you what this myscript.js does. So if you look at this one, this says this is first demo, and everything says welcome to jQuery. Let's look at what exactly I have in demo 3. So here, everything is welcome to jQuery. Earlier, using CSS selectors, I was changing only the background color and what is blue, green, different styles. But now, I'm actually changing the content itself. I have updated this one to this is first demo. So how is this happening? Let's go to the script file that I have. So if I look at this one, I have this document.ready. Then later I have a dollar. Then, okay, this one, you see this? I am selecting something. So what I am selecting? I'm selecting an element which has ID equal to demo. Okay, I'll talk about selectors in a moment. But this line of code, this first portion, whatever I have highlighted, will do this selection. I selected something, then I'm performing something. Okay, but now let's see what happens if I don't use document.ready. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and I'll go back to the HTML, and I'm going to do Control F5. Let's close this. Let's rerun this again. So now you see here, it shows the same text, right? Though I have a code which says in my script, change this HTML, I mean select this element, change the HTML, but this didn't listen to me, right? Because the code is being executed first. Okay, let's check how I can test this. I can go to this sources and see the code that is being executed. So here I have my script, right? Let's load this again. So here I have my script. I can put a breakpoint here. And let's do Control F5. Before this, you see this page is still loading, but the breakpoint has already hit this one, right? So elements are not loaded yet, but I'm executing the code. That's an issue here. Now what I should do here, I should add this document.ready back. So once I do this, now let's do Control F5. Now you can see here, the page content has been loaded, then I have breakpoint that has hit. Now, with the content that is available, now I can go ahead and click next. So you can see the difference immediately. This particular code has been executed. It has selected an element and performed something. So that is the importance of document.ready. So whenever you're working with jQuery, you need to know the importance of document.ready function. Okay. We have few more questions. How we can use two versions of jQuery if some function is work on later and some work on new one. So there is a one more option called conflict. So if you use that particular option, then you will be able to use both of them. Can we include the script tag references at the end? Yes, you can do that as well. I have seen few samples, or there is nothing wrong in adding those script tag references at the end also. All right. So I'll take if you have any other questions later. Okay. So whatever we have seen so far are just the basics, right? And ultimately our aim is to customize the list forms. So here I have one particular example where we have all types of fields that we could work with. Single line of text, multi-line text, enhanced rich text, radio button, drop down. So we'll see this, how we could work with each one of them. But in order to work with, similar to what you saw in terms of CSS selectors, you can always go ahead and use these things, which are JQuery selectors. So you have different set of selectors using which you can select those elements on the page. So basically here also you have like class selector, name selector, and the ID selector. So let's say if you have one class that is applied on different page, on the same page for all the elements, so you can use $ symbol and try to get all the elements on the page. Then again, the second one will give you all the div elements on the page. The third one, my element, let's say it's an ID, then this particular thing will give all, or the element that is matching with this particular ID. So these are the main selectors that you are going to have. But there are a few more options that you could use the selectors also. But one of the main thing that I use majorly in SharePoint is this particular thing, okay, which is starts with. Whenever I customize list form, mostly I'm going to use this particular starts with. But there are occasions I still use ends with also. We'll see these two in action, how these two can be used while working with customizing the list forms. Okay, so let's look at those things. I have SharePoint site here. I'm going to go to demo site. I'll open the list that I have. So this is the list that I have with all the fields. I'm going to click on new item. I have implemented the tabs here, but let's look at the fields. And if I remove the tabs, okay, let's go here. I'll go to the element section. So this is the thing that you're going to use from the developer console. So select an element on the page. So I'll click on this and I'm going to select this particular element. So if you see this one, I have a project name and this is all HTML. That's why understanding HTML is important if you want to learn about jQuery. Now here you have different tags, right? So one of them is title. So this is the one that we are going to use, and the property is ID. So I was talking about this console, right? So I'm going to use $. Then I'll try to get the element ID, okay, which starts with correct. I hope I'm typing the right syntax. No, I'm not. That's the advantage with the documentation that you have in hand. So sometimes you don't have to remember everything, but you can always go ahead and reuse it. So here I'm going to pass title. So which is actually starts with this particular element. So if I see here, the reason of using the starts with is you have additional GUID reference here, right? Let's say I have 4 different environments. For example, I might be having dev, I might be having test, UAT, and prod. With every element, if I create the list with different columns, this ID will always change. Okay, so in order to avoid those issues, I'm going to use only the internal column. So the internal name of the column, which is the title. So if I go ahead and run this, now you can see I am able to select that particular element. And if I want to drill down different properties, I can always look at those information. But if I want to perform further action, I can go ahead and use those things. Now you can see here, this was hidden now, right? In the same way, you could go ahead and choose different elements, okay, and work with different elements. So after this live session, what I'm going to do is I created a PDF to work with each and every type of field that you could use, and you can perform those operations. So I'm going to share that with you guys so that you can just refer that particular document. So yeah, I'll share probably by tomorrow, same time, so that you can have that reference later. And yeah, every time you are going to work with. So if you see, let's go to some other field which has people picker maybe. Let's see if I have that. Okay, I have the user field here, right? Let's go to developer tools again and select that particular SP user. So this one has a lot more elements than what you have expected, right? So here you have a span element, but you still have a div. Inside that you have input tag, you have a lot more. So you just need to look at which one you need to work with, which element, then perform those operations accordingly. Okay. Let me show you the one that we have customized. So here I have this issues list, which we have customized. So basically it was taken from Mark. He is like a guru in client-side development. So I took that example. All I did was I have used a couple of content editor web parts, and I have referenced the HTML as well as the other thing was the JavaScript code. So I'm going to quickly open these things here to show you how the code looks like. Oh, sorry. Let's go back here. Let's go to the site contents. Let's name custom form. So let's look at the custom form here. So, okay, this is the code that we have placed, right? And here, again, you have document.ready, and you have script that was mentioned, and the reference of JQuery. Then again, if you look at this one, this is selecting an element, then it is performing some action, okay? Then if you look at this one, again here, this is selecting something, then performing some action. So if you look at each line in jQuery, it does the same thing. Look at this again. You are selecting the TDs within the table, then you are performing an operation. So that's how jQuery will be always like. So even if it is 1,000 lines of code, I don't have to worry because I know what the first part does and what the second part does. And again, you can always go back to the API documentation and look at, search for each particular function and see what exactly it does. Okay, so this is the jQuery code that was written, and I'm going to show you the custom form fields. Okay, so here we just written simple HTML, which is actually we are trying to get based on the description of these fields. Okay, if you see the comments, due date and everything, then we are trying to render those elements on the HTML. So that's how actually this particular table got created. So this is actually pretty excellent work done by Mark. So you can actually reuse this and implement it in your project, which is a quick and easy solution. But again, try to understand what exactly it does behind the scenes, what the jQuery is doing here. That's an important thing. So once you understand that particular part, then it is easy to implement whatever the code that you're going to see or find out in the internet, because you will come across a lot of solutions when you're trying for different kinds of scenarios. So once you know the basic thing, then you will be in a good position to take that to the next level. You can't use C# in jQuery. So jQuery is purely for client side. So client side is on the browser, and C# is not allowed because you need to have some of those DLLs, and DLLs doesn't work on the browser. Siddharth has a question. What if different column starts with same name plus additional names like title underscore first name, title underscore second name, etc. So you can actually use the full thing. So you can always go like title underscore first name. Okay, you can still use starts with, which will still work. Okay, so that's how you need to use. Yeah, I will add that in my email that I'm gonna send. Sure. What kind of functionality are you talking about? Can you be more specific, Sajid, so that I'll be able to answer? Because you can do a lot more things in C#, right? But the code that you're going to use, if you're talking about server-side object model using jQuery, you will not be able to do that. That is where you should use REST and CSOM to communicate with SharePoint objects. Yeah. So you can still put whatever the questions that you're going to have, but I'm going to quickly take you through. So this one is actually part of what I was talking about. This is one of the things that I have shared with some of students, which is part of. Could you please explain this issue form code? Sure. Do you want me to explain which section? The jQuery section? Okay, I'm gonna take you through all these things. So the first line, if you see, you have a jQuery reference, which is important. Okay. The second one, you have a style. So in earlier our example, we have created a separate style sheet, right? Then the document.ready is important because you need to load all the elements on the page before you execute this code. Then what I'm doing here, I'm actually looking at each span element which has a class of hilly-billy form. Okay, what exactly is that? So let's go here and go to the share documents. So let's look at, okay, this is still the same one. So if you see this one, each span element on the page or the span tag has a class called hilly-billy form. This is what I'm trying to get. So I'm actually looping for each value. Okay, so if I have 10 columns, it will take me through 10 times. Then this represents the current object. For example, on this particular page, if I am looking at this element, so this is going to be taken into the consideration here. Then it's going to display the display name as, in our case, it's going to be title. So what you can do is, you can use one of the tip called console.log and then print this display name here so that you can actually see it. Okay, and then if you have any spaces, we are going to remove all those things. Then once we have that, within the same table, we are trying to find TD. Okay, so if you see table.ms format table, then TD. For each one of them, we're actually looking for that particular, when we have this TD, for example, let's go to the, we are actually building those TDs for each one of the element that we have found. Then we are using that display name, then we are just appending the element that we have found. Then we were able to get the code or the form that has been built. How to include the JS files in a package so that it will be handy while moving from dev to UAT and production. You can create a sandbox solution that can push those changes to your style library, because sandbox solution is still one way of doing it, but there are other options as well. Yeah, I'm not able to recollect on top of my mind, but yeah, you can still have features like in the sandbox. Then you can deploy these files in a specific library that you're going to work with. So you can always do that. Yes, correct. It's an out-of-the-box list form. But once you know the concepts of jQuery, you will be able to customize any form. So you don't have to use the same approach. Whereas the forms that I have built, I can load a specific external jQuery like you have seen in this example. Then you can perform those operations as well. Yes, you can use no-coded sandbox solutions in Office 365. If there is no DLL, yeah, that is supported. If you want to create a sandbox solution, you should still have SharePoint on-premises environment. Then only you will be able to create the sandbox solutions. Otherwise, you will not be able to. But otherwise, there are a lot of options in PNP. If you go to the PNP portal, there are options to upload these files to specific libraries using provider-hosted add-in or the other approaches. So you can go with those approaches as well. It's just uploading these files to a specific library. So put your questions if you still have in the comment section, so I'll try to answer them. Okay, I just want to make a quick announcement, guys. So whatever the things that we have been discussing were still part of this SharePoint Journey Club. So I have been doing, or we have been doing the trainings from last more than 1 year. But though we have been blogging for like last 5 years or so, but there were a lot of requests coming from the folks that we need to have much more affordable plan. That's where actually I have come up with this particular SharePoint Journey Club. So what it basically does is when you enroll for SharePoint Journey Club, you're going to get access to close to 6 courses as well as 2 real-world applications. Okay, which is one of them, the recruitment portal, as well as the help desk application, where we're going to build 2 real-world applications from the scratch. And also, whoever is going to be part of this particular SharePoint Journey Club will have access to a private forum where you guys can ask questions and communicate with others. Okay, so which is specific to only for the members who will be part of this particular SharePoint Journey Club. So if you look at the one that you're going to get access to, so this is the one. So you guys can go ahead and check this particular link here if you are interested to enroll for this. So this is going to be like the price point that I have kept is for like you will see like 3 different memberships: 6 months, 1 year, and there is 1 more year which is for the Elite, which is basically for, we have tied up with QuestPoint as well. You guys might have heard about QuestPoint. And also as part of this, we do the mock interviews, as well as there will be bi-weekly sessions as well, because there are a lot of things that is being changed in SharePoint Online. So in order to cover that, so every other weekend, we will take a specific topic. The first one which we are planning to do is SharePoint Framework. Then later we are going to move on to each topic that is actually pretty high importance, or a lot of focus on for SharePoint developers. So like I mentioned, this is a valid. For example, if you opt for any one of them, that will be a lifetime price. And yeah, like I mentioned, this is the most affordable thing that I could do, but these prices are going to go up. For example, whatever the prices that you're going to see will not be available anymore. If you look at the other portals which are actually providing the trainings, are quite expensive, but we are slowly starting now, so we would like to provide access as much as you guys can affordably enroll for. Okay, so there is a separate plan if you're an Indian student, so you can opt for one of these. So yeah, there is an FAQ section as well, so if you have any questions you can ask, or you can contact us. There is no lifetime enrollment as of now. It's just a 1 year subscription, but 6 months, but that will get fixed for every year if you enroll it now. All right, I'm ending the session now, so if you have any questions, you can just reach out to me to my email address. Thank you so much.